It's gonna get me in hot water. I can hear the comments now. But
for this video essay, I'm going to do it on my, don't be surprised, I'm recording it on my phone because it's clearer and there's lots of noise happening downstairs, so I want you guys to hear me properly whilst I talk about this particular topic, and I want you guys to hear it properly, so that's what I'm doing. So anyways, we're getting real cozy. I'm on my bed. We're getting real cozy because we're on my bed, and it fits with the topic of today's video, which is why we shouldn't gatekeep mental health disorders and any sort of disorder really, in response to a big creators video that I saw recently.
3 were Gatekeeping Autism and Bamboo Earrings. Yeah.
She's called Madisyn Brown, and she's a bigger creator than me. She makes loads of video essays as well, but she recently made a video called Everybody's Got Autism Now, and apparently so do I. And this is what I'm responding to today, because in the video that's currently now unlisted, said that her audience were trying to diagnose her with autism because she made a TikTok, and people were like, oh, like, you might have autism, like, go get it checked out, because the way that she was being in a TikTok made the people responding to that think that she might have it. And I agree, it's a bit intense if you have like your followers telling you that you might have a mental disorder or anything really. It's a bit intense if someone's telling you you might have something and then it sort of becomes a process where you're not really sure what's going on or why that's happening. Just picking up on your traits as a person, that's very overwhelming. But the way that she made this video was very insensitive to the people in that community who she doesn't really relate to or isn't really involved in that community. For Madisyn, I guess she felt very ashamed if she had autism, which is very weird and sort of like internalized ableism because having autism or ADHD isn't something that you should be ashamed of, especially as a woman. I don't think there's anything to be ashamed about if you have any sort of mental health issue or problem or disorder. There's nothing to be ashamed about. But anyways, before she unlisted this video, I managed to watch it, and she was essentially trying to gatekeep autism.
I'm not saying we should gatekeep autism, but I mean, honestly, like, maybe we should. Now that I think about it, maybe we should gatekeep autism.
We fuck with you.
Who the fuck is we? We the people of the United States?
No.
And essentially, mental health, you might as well just call it mental health. She sort of wanted to gatekeep mental health, and especially autism, which I don't think is very beneficial for society or anyone who has it. I don't think we should really be doing that in our society. Gatekeeping mental health is a bit too far. It really is. Like, what brings you to that level where you want to gatekeep something that loads of people might experience, or loads of people that are trying to find themselves and get clarity over their mental health? I don't think there's any use in gatekeeping mental health. She was confusing identity politics and gender politics and this whole confusion of the TikTok world.
The thing with autism is that I truly believe that people just are looking for an identity. As social justice, people find solace I think, in being non-binary or, in this case, neurodivergent. But they rely on new wave forms of identity to feel a sense of community. And
that should really be for another video, because identity politics and the way that people are struggling with their identities currently, right now, is completely separate from mental health. But although they might intertwine, they are very different things. And I also do want to make a video on the current state of identity politics and TikTok, and all of those things, attaching yourself to different aesthetics and all of that. The more we gatekeep mental health, the less information there is what we're oppressing. And she was essentially also gatekeeping oppression, which is all down to capitalism, because capitalism is a product of oppression, and it all intertwines into everything. And why, especially with mental health, things get oppressed, and it's very hard for people to figure out their problems because of oppression and the way that society functions.
Systemic issues versus someone misgendered me at the grocery store.
But anyways, in her video, she spoke about how these people on TikTok are trying to, well, to me, they look like they're just trying to find clarity in their mental health, and they're discovering themselves. Especially with autism, it's quite difficult for people to discover themselves and realize and all of that. But anyway, she was talking about how these people on TikTok were attaching themselves to aesthetics and mental health labels like an aesthetic, which it is not. Mental health is not an aesthetic. It's not the same as attaching yourself to one of those aesthetics. It's not the same. So even commenting on how those people are attaching themselves to a mental health label is very insensitive, considering TikTok is being this sort of platform which is helping people speak out and speak up about their mental health issues and problems and getting diagnosed, etc, you know the gist. But I think she truly misunderstood that these people were not doing it for attention or for any sort of identity reasons, because it's very clear that they're not doing that when they're talking on TikTok about mental health. In her video, she's very bad sourcing for her video essay, especially on a topic about mental health. She used sources that weren't very beneficial for those in those communities. So she used Autism Speaks, which is a very bad charity, I think, for her sourcing about autism, which, if you don't know, Autism Speaks is a very bad platform for those with autism, or, you know, it's just, they're not that good. As well as comparing autism to a disease, which I didn't really understand, because I was like, what are you doing? That just makes the mental health stigma so much worse.
And people are more open about it, but you know what's also more normalized? The fact that most of the population has a strain of herpes. We kind of are all aware of that now, but no one's putting herpes positive in their Instagram bio.
Especially in a video essay, mental health should not be compared to a disease, and I think again that's very insensitive to the people she was making a video about, as well as talking about gender politics, which I think was sort of out of hand and not really relevant to the topic of autism and mental health, Because again, gender politics along with identity politics are very separated from mental health. Although they might intertwine, I think it could have been saved for another video, but I don't like also the excuse of gender politics or mentioning trans lives as an excuse for like invalidating autism and people with autism. I really don't understand that. So I think that was very insensitive for her to do, because obviously there are some people in that community that also struggle with gender identity as a whole, and I just don't think it was a good idea to intertwine that all together. But the reason she had a lot of backlash from this video was because of the tone that she was making the video in, and people in the comments of her video responded, of course, and gave very valuable criticism. Because you're talking about a community and mental health, it's very important that you think about all of the sensitivities of it and the community that you're talking about, and to make sure that you're not overspeaking on that community that you are not in or have no information about that's badly sourced. Because if, for example, if you were to comment on someone's culture, it wouldn't be right unless you had general experience of it or you were in that community. So of course it's going to be very sensitive for people. It just frustrated me, because I was like, this is making the stigma of mental health worse, because it felt like she was almost stigmatizing it because she didn't want to face the fact that she might have been autistic. So many people in her video responded and commented on it, and it caused a lot of, I guess, backlash, because it seemed like a very not sensitive video essay.
So I just watched the Madisyn Brown video on autism. If you haven't seen it yet, don't watch it. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, honestly, if you want to see what I'm talking about, you can go watch it. But these are just like my hot takes as an autistic creator that I think are interesting that she talked about in the video, because she talks about a lot of things in the video. So we're gonna just dive right into it. So she talks about non-binary and neurodivergent, this like kind of pipeline for wannabe oppressed white people, and she talks about like the oppression Olympics and how mainly she basically says a blanket statement about how white people that have these disorders or have these identities are just fishing for an identity because they don't have one, because they want to participate in some sort of like oppression Olympics. This, I think, is dangerously overgeneralized. Like, I mean, I feel like it is a genuine problem, and I've seen a lot of content about it, and I do think that there are people that do fit into that category. I don't, however, think that every white person that identifies as non-binary or autistic or ADHD or Tourette's or bipolar or whatever are trying to do so because of some sort of like oppression Olympics. Like, I don't think that was a fair take.
Autism is becoming more normalized and people are more open about it, but
so I just watched Madisyn Brown's video called Everyone Got Autism, and what you just saw was the TLDR version of that video. But I watched the entire video on YouTube, and I do have some thoughts. There are some things that I agree with in the video about how white autistics try to use their autism to separate themselves from whiteness. And as a black autistic person who's been in the same room as other white autistics who've done stuff like this, it's very annoying. But what I don't agree with is your thoughts about how autism is being more normalized. You said that people are trying to normalize autism, but you also said that people are also trying to normalize herpes, and nobody is saying that I am herpes positive on their social media. And that part honestly makes me feel uncomfortable. It may not be your intention to compare the two, but autism is not something that someone could get. It is something that a person is born with. And the reason why we say autism and proud and we're happy to be ourselves is because a lot of people try to speak over us. Like you said, we only represent 1% of the world population. I mean, it got to a point where autistic companies like Autism Speaks were saying that autism is the worst thing that could ever happen to a family member's life. And that is why stuff like autism representation matters, not only on the screens, but also in the medical field and education. That is my personal thoughts about your video as a black autistic man, and I hope you learn more about autism.
After watching her video, I watched a few other creators. For example, my friend Elliot on YouTube also made a video called Why We Gatekeeping Mental Health, and also spoke more into it, as well as Unpoetic Justice, who made a video about why we shouldn't overspeak. And I think that's what went wrong in this video, was that she was overspeaking on a community that she was not a part of and didn't really know that much information of, and sort of went in blindsided because she didn't like the comments from her audience, which I understand, but it seemed very, I don't know, like the tone of the video just seemed very off, and I think that's why a lot of people got confused by it, because it was such an important topic to talk about and it deserves so much more than that, especially for the community. People want to feel validated and seen and not like an outsider. I think that's what's important. On to the next bit, I want to explain the importance of self-diagnosis and why we shouldn't put others down if they want to self-diagnose themselves, because this is the whole reason why we shouldn't gatekeep mental health, is because there are many people that are struggling with mental health, and self-diagnosis does really help a lot of people. For example, with me, I self-diagnosed myself ages ago because I don't have a therapist, I don't have enough money to afford a diagnosis. But anyways, years ago, one of my friend's friends got mad at me for self-diagnosing myself when I was really just being like, I have these mental health issues going on, and there's nothing wrong with self-diagnosis, because again, I was just figuring myself out so I could get a diagnosis, which is the reason why self-diagnosis is important in the first place, because it gives these people a chance to get clarity on themselves and discover symptoms and traits that they might have not realized were a symptom or a trait of something. I recently understood about myself is that I might have ADHD, because some of the things that I do, I thought, oh, I was just depressed, or I was just having a bad day mentally. So therefore, it's nothing. But really, it's just my ADHD and my brain just making me behave in these sort of ways where I can't feel motivated sometimes, or I forget things, or I don't keep track of anything, and many other things. But anyways, people deserve to be self-diagnose because it gives them an opportunity to discover themselves even more, which leads on to a diagnosis, and then they have discovered themselves. But lots of people seem to be against self-diagnosing because they think they're doing it for a malicious reason or for a reason that a person might not agree with, or they just think they're not valid because they don't have it on paper, which from my experience isn't very helpful, because when I went to college I tried to explain to my teacher that I had ADHD and I had to wear my AirPods so I could mute the noise in the classroom, otherwise I would have a response in my brain that would make me think, panic, and get sensory overload from the noises in the class, which would then make me not concentrate on my work. And I tried explaining about 9 times that I have ADHD. This is the reason why I'm not concentrating in class, but when I get to hyper-focusing on a special interest or a project that I'm doing, of course it's a different story because I have ADHD, but I'm self-diagnosed. So anyways, even at college, it wasn't really valid because I didn't have the privilege to get diagnosed. And even when I was little, my parents couldn't afford it or didn't really know where to go for it. So now I still don't have a diagnosis, and I will one day. In Madisyn's video, she forgot to mention people of colour and trans and non-binary folks who also might have autism or ADHD, and I think that was very important to mention in this video, considering that people of colour have it harder to get diagnosed, especially in the medical field, because of medical racism. And that makes me very angry. It makes me so angry. I wish you let me wonder it. Continuing from my story, I actually did try and get diagnosed with autism when I was 16 because of my first boyfriend who was autistic, thinking that I was autistic, which makes sense because it really does make sense. But anyways, I got patronized by this mental health service called CAMS because I was masking. So this is the reason why I'm not diagnosed today as an adult. And why for people it's very difficult to get diagnosed unless you have privileges and general privileges to get diagnosed, or some sort of way of getting there. But what I think Madisyn misinterpreted from people on TikTok talking about autism in general and any sort of mental health is not the same as anything else, because it's mental health. Is really missing out on saying is that these people are trying to find clarity, and TikTok is giving them these sources to get information about a mental health issue that they may have. So I think that's very important, because if you have no information about something that you may have, it's going to be very difficult to even get to the point of diagnosis. So I don't think those people doing that are really, I don't think they're doing it in a bad way, because they're just figuring themselves out, and I don't think that's bad. With this mental health oppression, it all comes down to the stigma the lack of access to resources, and inadequate representation. For example, autistic and ADHD people being represented in the media, there's not much representation. Apart from recently, probably Wednesday Addams, which people aren't really seeing as being autistic coded, but I think she is. I really do. I think that would definitely help with this sort of stigma towards autism and ADHD, is definitely representation in the media, because that is currently lacking. And of course there are some autistic and ADHD coded characters, but there's not that many that feel very accurate to people with autism or ADHD in the media. Those who are people of colour, there is not much representation, especially for those with autism. I also forgot to mention that Madisyn Brown is allistic, and that means that she is non-autistic, so therefore it's sort of a weird sort of view coming in talking about a community that she is not part of or that she relates to, because she is allistic. And I understand why all of those people freaked out they didn't really freak out. I understand why those people criticized her in her YouTube video, because it did come off as being very insensitive, and I think the community really deserve better. I also forgot to mention that autism and ADHD is not something based on the way that you look. So I'm going to insert a TikTok explaining about that.
You have people are going to tell you that you're faking.
I don't think that we're particularly used to seeing whole ass personalities of disabled people being represented in the media. I think that for the most part, up until now, we've really only seen autism being represented as a whole person who is autism. Not a person who is autistic. The person is autism. I think that there's a weird kind of dissonance and maybe fear even that happens in people who see someone that they can relate to, for example, somebody who's autistic, even though they don't themselves identify with the autism label. I think that for the most part, their mindset goes to either A, there's no way that you're autistic because I relate to you and I'm not autistic, or B, I must be autistic because you are autistic and I can relate to you. And it's so powerful to hear stories that have been created with autistic people because we're actually seeing ourselves on the screen. But I think that this is causing a lot of confusion for other people because they're like, what the hell? I can relate to you. Yeah, of course you can. I'm a whole ass person. I have a whole ass personality. I have things that I like and things that I don't like, and you could relate to me and not be autistic, just like I can relate to you if you're not autistic. Another really easy example of where I see this is, not all the time, but a lot of the time, straight people might be scared to identify with a love story about queer people because they're afraid of identifying with a queer label instead of just being able to identify with the fact that they're in love. So go and learn as much as you can from the mouths of people who actually are disabled and are living their real life stories. I'm happy you're here.
Yes, it's not about how you look, which is why women tend to get misdiagnosed or not diagnosed at all because of the way that they look. Or because they're just a woman, which is very sad. Conclusion of this, I don't think that we should be gatekeeping mental health and getting mad at people on TikTok for speaking out about their diagnosis or finally getting clarity, because for those people it takes a long time, especially with an autism diagnosis, to get there. And gatekeeping just causes more oppression, and I don't think we need more of that, especially with the mental health stigma. It sort of stigmatizes mental health more if you're trying to gatekeep it, which means there's no sort of awareness for other people, and it just stigmatizes it, really. Don't think it does. Yes, I don't think we should gatekeep mental health anytime soon. And yeah, I wanted you guys to know my personal story because of course I'm still undiagnosed, and that's how it's going to be for a while until I move out. But yes, autistic people deserve better representation, and those people who are getting self-diagnoses are very valid, and they deserve that because they are getting self-diagnoses are extremely valid because they are just discovering themselves and finding sources. For example, on TikTok, it can be very helpful, but I don't think we should really try to gatekeep it because that causes more oppression. And yes, that is my thoughts on is autism cool now? It definitely is, and it might seem like it is, but people are just opening up, and I think that's good. Okay, I don't know what to say now. I feel like I just made this video essay extremely awkward. So I definitely think Madisyn was definitely overspeaking on a community or a topic that she didn't really understand or didn't really relate to. And that's why she got the criticism that she did on that video. What am I saying? I can't remember what I was saying. My mind has gone dead. I need like a hot drink. Okay. I hope you enjoyed this. I've sort of lost my head with it because I completely forgot what I wanted to talk about. But I guess that's what happens when you have undiagnosed ADHD. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to subscribe. It's free and you can unsubscribe later. And you can also subscribe to my Patreon or send me a coffee, which I would appreciate, because it takes me a lot of time to research this, even though it may seem like I'm not, or seem like I'm not putting a lot of effort in. I have recorded this for 42 minutes, so yes. Anyways, I shall see you in my next video, and I love you so much. And yeah, let me know which topic you want me to talk about next, because I'll happily talk about it since I can talk for 40 minutes. But yeah, I'll see you in my next video. Bye. Okay, I need to stop now. Okay, see you later.